Hi, this is Ryan from Galaxy Toys and Collecting Cosmos, and today I'm going to show you two of the newer Bandai model kits I picked up, the Scout Trooper with Speeder Bike and Sandtrooper. So let's start with the Biker Scout and Speeder Bike model kit. Just kind of a brief look at the box and the instructions here. Not a whole lot of interesting things, but these are, of course, the trees that you take all the pieces off. You can see some of the decals there. I'm not going to go into much detail on these trees as I have in some of the past videos. If you want to see what all goes into it, you can go check one of those out in my feed. Here's just a brief look at how the instructions work on these. And here's the Biker Scout finished and clean before I ever even weather him. Here's some of the Speeder Bike pieces on the trees. And a bit of the instructions for the speeder bike itself. Here's the back of the bike with the flaps down. And with the flaps up, as you will see later on the final model kit. Here's a look at the assembled speeder bike unpainted. And the Scout with speeder bike unpainted. So I'll start with the Scout Trooper that I have here. As you can see, I've kind of given him a lot of weathering. He's got some green and brown on his boots, a little black as you get a little higher, just to give him a little weathering like he's been going through the trees. I added a bunch of the decals that came to put on him. Definitely rounded out some of the detail for him. It looks very good. He does suffer from what I think some of these Bandai figures suffer from, which is their shoulders look a little too wide sometimes, and it just has to do with the way the shoulder joints are composed. As with all of these figures, they are very highly articulated. His head does seem a little looser than a lot of the others, but he does come with his bike as well. And I assembled his bike and completely weathered it as well. So you can see there's a lot to it. There was a lot of pieces to this one, of course. A couple of decals on this, not many. You could put more. As you can see, I kind of like the way they did the display base here, to where it just has a little invisible deal coming from the back here to plug into the speeder bike. If you want, you can take this out, and then there's another piece that you can plug into there. I did go ahead... There's a piece that fell off here. Go ahead and weather the ground as well, just to give it a little bit more of a feel. Altogether, I thought it was really cool. This does have the option, you can take these flaps and put alternate flaps that go straight down, as opposed to straight out. Since mine's kind of in flying mode, I decided to go ahead and keep it like that. The one disappointment that I do have with this is the handlebars don't want to stay straight for some reason. I'm not sure why. All these little switches and everything, some of them actually move here. Those were all individual pieces I had to put on. I thought it was pretty interesting how much detail and how much assembly went into this piece. Take a look at the underneath here then too, so you can get an idea of all that. And so many little pieces that went into this. So for comparison, here is the Bandai model kit Biker Scout next to the Hasbro Black Series 1. This would be the Bandai, this would be the Hasbro. As you can see, there's a little bit more detail, I think, in these model kits. Although the Black Series doesn't have the shoulder pad problem, I see. I think the helmet's much better. Just right down to the details. Now, of course, I did all the detailing on this, so it's going to have a little bit more and be a little more accurate on some of that, whereas the Hasbro piece is just a straight, machine work. So you can get more when you do it by hand, of course. Comparison between the two bikes, the model kit is the one on the bottom with the Hasbro one on top. And while I did the painting by hand on this one, I think that the detailing looks a little more realistic. Whereas on the Hasbro bike, it has some things like some of these silver spots. It looks like just somebody took a paintbrush and splotched it right on there. So here's a comparison with both Scouts on the bike, with the model in the foreground and the Hasbro on the background. I actually got the model kit looking really good. Sometimes getting this figure on the bike is hard, just because both the bike and the figure are made of just model plastic, so they're very lightweight, And while it's very posable, you don't want to push things too hard. You're always afraid you might break something. Even though I've never broken really anything on these with posing, it feels a little weird, especially with like the pedals down here being very slim plastic and connected very flimsily. You just don't want to break anything. And so you're always a little bit worried, but he actually looks very good on his bike. These little straps here actually move when you bring his legs up, rather than the Hasbro one, which they're just kind of rubbery, so they just kind of move up. So that's a look at the Bandai Biker Scout and Speeder Bike model kit. Here's a look at the extra pieces that came with this, the extra hands, flaps, and that little plug piece. Next we go on to the Sandtrooper. Here he is, nice and assembled and clean and white. I just kind of took you through the weathering process. You can see the paints that I use and what those added to each one of these as I added each layer to it. You can see he gets a little dirtier each time. And here he is completed. There's just a look at the 3 type of backpacks that you can make with this. And his extra accessories, guns, hands, and the extra pauldron stickers. So next we have the Sandtrooper. I decided there's a couple things you could do with him. Number one, you could decide which gun to give him. I gave him this very large blaster here, or rifle, I guess. And you could decide which pauldron to put on. I decided with orange. I always think of Sandtroopers with orange pauldrons. Again, he's very highly posable, and I decided to weather him a lot, as you can see. I know the light from my camera takes out some of that, but as you can see, I really went to town weathering him because it's a Sandtrooper. Sandtroopers aren't bright white and clean, so I thought I'd make it look a little bit better, and so he's much dirtier. And I actually, just looking at my camera, he's even dirtier than I can see in the camera here. Well, it's darker without the light. I thought maybe you could see how dirty I kind of got him in there. Just to give you an idea of all that detail. So, the only complaint I really had on this figure was that this piece right here, this little pouch, likes to fall off very easily. I've been tempted to glue it a few times. As with all these model kits, nothing's glued. It's all snapped together. You could customize this quite a bit. Like I said, you can have different guns, of course, the different hands as with each of these. Even the backpack had 3 different ways that you could customize it. It's kind of a cool thing. Plus, you could, of course, put the pauldron. It came with orange pauldron, white pauldron, or just leave it black. I am very impressed with him, and compare him to one of the earliest Hasbro Black Series figures, the Sandtrooper. I think the difference is quite shocking. And, you know, he's got, like, his mouth and everything. Those are decals in there. And when you compare it to here, I just think it looks so much better, much more realistic. The only thing I like better on the Hasbro, I would say, is the pauldron. It actually looks like it's being held down, like it's leather or cloth. Whereas this, the decal, it got wrinkled in a couple places. I suppose I could have used the water decals. I usually just use the stick-on ones. And of course, the weathering is all machine done rather than hand done, so it's not going to be the best, and the backpack really isn't weathered at all. But just to give you an idea of what these look like next to each other, here's a look at the backpacks. You can see differences and how those are done. So I'm still very impressed with these Bandai model kits. I still like to keep buying them. As you can see, K2SO is there in the background. That's my next project. For the price, I think the Sandtrooper was about $20, and the Scout Trooper with bike was about $45, so it's very similar to the Hasbro Black Series. You just have to spend 2, 3, 4 hours putting them together and maybe another hour weathering. But to me, you kind of get a better figure than what you're getting from these Black Series. I do recommend these if you really like your 6-inch figures and you want maybe something a little bit better in Black Series or something more. As you can see, I always buy the Black Series anyway, but I'm really impressed with these, and I just keep buying them. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at these Bandai model kits. Of course, you saw the K2SO figure I have to review later on. I've got a couple other things I want to go to, like the Hot Toys Captain Phasma has arrived, and a few other things. So look for those in the future. If you have any comments or anything else you'd like to see review, please leave it below. Thank you.